I mean, we may tell ourselves that we're creating something of artistic value, or there's some sort of spiritual dimension to the picture business, but what it really is this fat cat, Nick Skank, out in New York, running this factory, serving up these lollipops to the what they used to call the bread and circuses for the.
30 years, 16 Coen Brothers movies. Joel and Ethan Coen are some of the most fascinating filmmakers out there. The Coen brothers were born to two Jewish professors in Minnesota. Joel graduated from the New York University Film School and found work with low-budget horror movies such as Evil Dead, which made a whopping $2.4 million, and Fear No Evil, everybody's favorite low-budget horror movie that wasn't even released in theaters.
Class of 81. All the students are going to hell, except for Andrew. He sent them there.
Meanwhile, Ethan got a philosophy degree from Princeton University, and by the way, later on it'll make a lot of sense that one of the brothers studied philosophy. Then in 1984, the brothers co-wrote and directed Blood Simple, financed it through private investors, won a bunch of awards, and here we are. Much has been said and written about the remarkable craft of these films, all of which is true. The Coen brothers are perhaps the most talented filmmakers working today. But what's the meaning of it all? Their films play with philosophical ideas about life, death, and morality, but is there an underlying message that courses through their filmography? As far as answering that question goes, the Coen bros themselves have been of little help.
They expect, in a certain sense, for us to do their job for them. Yeah. You know, so they sort of, we make the movie and then they sort of take it apart, but they, in interviews frequently, they want us to take it apart for them, which is not sort of that interesting to us.
Nevertheless, the Coen brothers are artists with something to say, and their films necessitate some deep thinking. So let's put the pieces together and find out
what's going on.
Also, this video isn't going to address every single one of their movies. Don't at me, I didn't want this video to be 5 hours long. Just as analyzing films involves searching for some sort of deeper meaning, the Coen's films themselves deal with the broader idea of searching for meaning. Is that too meta? Should I slow down a bit? No? Okay. Some have argued that the films themselves are nihilist.
Willie doesn't care about anything. He's a nihilist.
Oh, that must be exhausting.
Or bearing the philosophy that there is no deeper meaning to be found in our random, frivolous lives. The best example for this is A Serious Man, their 2009 film which follows a physics professor desperately trying to make sense of his life as it crumbles apart around him, and thus his need for a philosophy makes him a serious man. But the protagonist, Larry, isn't the only serious man in the Coen brothers cinematic universe. By the way, I just made up the phrase Coen brothers cinematic universe because these days it's cool to call everything a cinematic universe. But anyways, one tenet of the Coen brothers is that we see a number of characters who seem to have it figured out.
I do like looking into their eyes as they try to make sense of it.
Everett in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Jerry in Fargo, Jeffrey Lebowski, the rich one, in The Big Lebowski, Ed Tom Bell in No Country for Old Men, Osborne Cox in Burn After Reading, the communist in Hail Caesar, etc. But here we arrive at a common subversion from the Coens. Every character who thinks they have it figured out really doesn't. Even though Larry's job in A Serious Man is to understand the laws that govern our world, he still can't put together why his world is falling apart, or if there's any sense or solution to it all. Likewise, Everett finally turns to faith before his apparent death. Jerry fails to see the consequences of his actions. The rich Lebowski is revealed to not be so rich after all. Ed Tom Bell is forced to realize he doesn't understand his world anymore. Osborne Cox just straight up murders a dude, which is pretty metal. And the communists ultimately fail to convert George Clooney. Even though we all want to have it figured out and we want to believe that other people have it figured out, maybe no one has it figured out. Where do we find our meaning in life? The Coen Brothers don't offer a clear right answer to that question. In fact, they seem more intent on offering up some wrong answers. In every film, characters search for meaning in all the wrong places. Political power and physical appearance in Burn After Reading, The Three Rabbis and A Serious Man, communist agendas in Hail Caesar, and of course the most common, money.
Where's the money, Lebowski?
It's no coincidence that so many Coen films involve a briefcase full of money that every character is chasing after, yet it never actually leads to any fulfillment or success. The money either never existed or ends up in nobody's hands. The characters in these films, just like all of us, are seeking out comfort from the existential dread that looms over all of us in whatever way possible. They search after fulfillment in briefcases of money, they rely on non-existent systems of universal justice, they try to find meaning in power and looks and agendas, and they ultimately never find it. They look back to the good old days that never existed, just as the films themselves often resemble an old western or noir film, only to subvert those typical genre expectations. But rather than offering a moral or spiritual solution, the Coens suggest that there is only one true, reliable constant in life: death. Not morality, or justice, or religion, but death. Which is super depressing, but, the circle of life goes on until we're all dead and our lives no longer matter. The opening short in The Ballad of Buster Scruggs shows a cowboy, Buster Scruggs, accepting his death as he is replaced by a younger version of himself. Also, Buster happens to be the name of Ethan Coen's son, so, circle of life. We see this elsewhere, with the Big Lebowski teasing the coming of a Little Lebowski.
But then I happen to know that there's a Little Lebowski on the way.
Marge's pregnancy in Fargo, and High's dream sequence at the end of Raising Arizona. Now, babies are cute and all, but this still signifies that we are all inevitably marching toward our death, not knowing what will come after, and there's no justice or spiritual hierarchy that can provide us comfort. So, is that it? Is the message of these movies that we're all going to die and life is entirely meaningless? Are the Coen brothers actually nihilists?
What did we learn, Palmer?
I don't know, sir.
I don't know either. I guess we learned not to do it again.
Yes, sir.
Well, if I know what we did.
Hey, buddy. What's all this?
Oh, I'm making a YouTube video. I'm analyzing all the Coen Brothers movies. I've just gotta find out what the deeper meaning of it all is. I mean, check this out. This symbol appears at the beginning of several of their movies, so clearly there's a universal meaning that they're trying to send here. Or maybe they're saying that the universe is indifferent and doesn't care about us.
That's just the studio's logo.
Right. Still, I know there's gotta be something behind all of it. I mean, The films might seem nihilistic by nature, but in an interview, the Coen Brothers said themselves they're not nihilists, which is why in The Big Lebowski, they literally chose for the bad guys to be called nihilists. But then, of course, you've got films like A Serious Man or No Country for Old Men, where all of these injustices happen without any sort of moral comfort. But then you've still got Hail Caesar, where Josh Brolin literally gives a monologue about how movies have a deeper meaning. So...
So, have you eaten anything lately?
Don't worry about it. I've just gotta figure this all out.
I don't know, man. It's like you're putting all these movies into a box. Maybe they don't mean the same thing.
A box. Just like how in A Serious Man, Larry talks about the Schrodinger's cat experiment.
That's not what I'm getting at.
Where a cat is put in a box, which means at any point in the future it could be alive or dead. Just like how the film itself ends with a cliffhanger where Larry could be alive or dead.
Are you going somewhere with this?
I mean, the film even starts with a scene filmed in a 4:3 aspect ratio, as if the movie itself is being put in a box. Okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but what the whole Schrodinger's cat thing is getting at is the uncertainty principle. The idea that sometimes we just don't know. So maybe all of these movies, and by extension the Coen Brothers, are trying to say that sometimes we just don't know. Maybe the Coen Brothers subscribe to the philosophy of existentialism, which asserts that the universe has no inherent meaning, but therefore we are free to give it whatever meaning we so choose.
Dude, that's the most pretentious thing I've ever heard.
You insult my film analysis one more time, and you are entering a world of pain.
Oh, good. You can quote The Big Lebowski.
A world
Everybody
of
can
pain.
quote The Big Lebowski.
The Coen brothers ask some pretty big questions in their films. Is there an afterlife, and if so, what does it look like? Is there any true justice in a world that seems to have none? Am I getting to the point where I sound really pretentious? Is there a point in even asking these questions? Well, none of these questions really have answers. And that seems to be what the Coens are getting at. A Serious Man has a 5-minute interlude about a dentist trying to find the meaning behind symbols he saw carved into one of his patient's teeth. And after losing sleep over it and seeing a rabbi, the rabbi tells him,
The teeth, we don't know. Aside from Hashem, don't know. Helping others, couldn't hurt.
So perhaps we only need to derive whatever meaning in life we need to derive, rather than spending our lives arguing over what religion or philosophy is factually correct and trying to be the one who has it all figured out. See, I made it go full circle, just like in the beginning, guys. Yay me. But that's exactly what art is. Something that can be interpreted however you need to interpret it. The Coen brothers are, in essence, using art to comment on the nature of art.
Bro, that's meta.
Art is capable of being the source of our meaning, of using stories to access a higher spiritual meaning, if there even is such a thing. These films aren't overtly religious. If anything, A Serious Man shows how institutionalized religion can often be misguided, but these films do seem to be spiritual.
If we had, but time, faith, have but faith.
Or at least they access some sort of higher idea or way of thinking, which is exactly what stories are meant to do, using the unrealistic to convey something about reality. And these films are very unrealistic. They're known for their dream sequences, the occasional musical number, and outlandish sequences. Side note, the chase scene in Raising Arizona is better than any action scene in any Marvel movie ever. Change my mind. But if anything, the more grounded and realistic films are the ones that seem to have the least moral/spiritual clarity in terms of the message they send. Look, I'm starting to get into pretentious territory, so if there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it should be this. The Coen brothers use art to convey the essence and importance of art, and they do a really, really good job of it.
Since I've been saying a bunch of pretentious crap about the meaning of art, now seems like a good time to say hello, and welcome to Let's Talk Film. I really do believe all of that poetic junk I was just saying, and I believe that art, and therefore movies, have meaning. And so, on this channel, I intend to find that meaning by talking about movies. Also, if at any point I cross over that pretentious line, feel free to go into the comments and say, "Hey man, you sound like a pretentious douche." But why do I do this, you ask? Why do I spend so much time and effort to do such a great service to society? Well, firstly, there simply aren't enough young white men making video essays on YouTube. That was sarcasm before anyone gets offended. Secondly, it's because the movie industry as we know it is being plagued by meaninglessness. Now, I don't want to sound like an alarmist, but the most popular movies these days are the ones that offer the most spectacle at the expense of something we can actually think about. No, I'm not one of those snobs who thinks that all action movies are terrible. On the contrary, I generally like action movies, and I think they're entirely capable of conveying meaning. And I'm in no way above thinking that this is awesome, or this, or this, or this, or this. But at the same time, action movies are responsible for quite a few brain cells being lost. But nonetheless, even if they don't always make much money, movies have meaning, and I intend to search for it. But anyway, thank you for spending the past 15 minutes of your life listening to my pretentious ramblings. And since this is a YouTube video, I guess I should tell you to go smash that like button and subscribe button. All the buttons. Go comment. Tell me I'm beautiful, please. I really need a sense of validation. Have a good one.